Let me drop a disclaimer right here. This content contains mature themes and explicit images not suitable for all audiences. Today's obsession with the female backside is everywhere. Music videos, social media, fashion, fitness culture. But this fixation is not new. It has deep roots in history, racial exploitation, and spiritual perversion. As the church, we must expose this darkness with both truth and compassion. Let me approach this subject from the two main ancient cultural roots. The first one is Africa and the fertility connection. In many pre-colonial African cultures, fuller buttocks were seen as signs of fertility, beauty, and womanhood. The Khoi people of southern Africa practiced a tradition called steatophagia, in which larger buttocks were considered desirable. These cultural symbols were not originally sexualized, they were honored. Cultural roots also stem from Greece and Rome. In classic antiquity, sculptures like Venus Callipyge, also known as Venus of the beautiful buttocks, reflect admiration for the buttocks, associating it with beauty, sensuality, and divine femininity. Even in mythologies, sensual appeal was part of the goddess power, and you can see her representation as this classical statue holds up her dress, revealing the shape of her buttocks. Let's touch on colonialism and the sexualization of black women. The tragedy of Sarah Baartman, also known as Hottentot Venus. In the early 1800s, Sarah Baartman, a South African woman with pronounced buttocks, was exhibited in Europe as a sexual curiosity. She was paraded like a freak, examined, dehumanized, and eventually died in poverty and shame. Her body became symbolic of the fetishization and exploitations of black women's bodies. This is where the cultural obsession with the buttocks became racialized and perverted. Yes, Sarah Baartman was a real woman. Let's touch on slavery and exploitation. Enslaved African women were often violated and used for breeding because of their physical features. The buttocks became associated with hypersexuality, animalistic lust, and inferiority, a direct contradiction of their God-given dignity. We've touched the origin and historical roots of the obsession with women backside. Now let's touch modern pop culture. I need you to understand that modern pop culture is just repackaged exploitation. Media, music, and marketing. The rise of music videos, especially in hip hop and pop, has turned women's bodies, particularly the backside, into objects of lust and currency. Brands and celebrities have profited from selling sensuality, often pushing boundaries to glorify sexual exploitation over sacred beauty. Today's social media influencers have made this obsession mainstream, even among young girls. Now let's touch on plastic surgery boom. The culture's obsession with the women backside has such a powerful influence and stronghold on women today that most women elect to have a procedure called the Brazilian butt lift, also known as BBL. BBL is now one of the fastest growing cosmetic procedures in the world. Women are literally dying trying to meet an idolized image rooted in exploitation and demonic lust. Here's the spiritual perspective. It's the enemy's plan all along. It's the enemy's strategy. And when I say the enemy, I'm talking about the adversary of mankind, Satan. When you read Genesis 3 and 7, you discover it was after sin entered, Adam and Eve first became aware of their nakedness. Shame and sexuality were corrupted at the same moment. When you read Romans 1:24 through 25, you'll discover God gave them up to uncleanliness and the lust of their hearts, to dishonor their bodies among themselves. 1 John 2 and 16, we would discover the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, the spirit of lust, the spirit of Jezebel, and idolatry all work together to distort what God made beautiful, turning the sacred into the sexual. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is a spirit of lust, a spirit of Jezebel, and a spirit of idolatry that is strongly influencing the culture right now to have an obsession with the woman's backside. And the women are falling prey to the spells of these spirits and the influence of these spirits, to where they truly now believe that they are not significantly beautiful unless they distort their original body in an attempt to try and increase the size of their buttocks in order to fit the mold that culture has cut out, that culture has said is the ideal look for women. We have to understand, if you didn't get anything else from this You have to understand when you come all the way through the origin and the historical roots, all this exploitation of the buttocks was initially towards black women. But now the spirit of Jezebel, the spirit of lust, and the spirit of idolatry have now influenced all cultures. Everywhere you look, somebody's posting a picture of their backside on social media. Here's the good news. There is redemption through Christ. 1 Peter chapter 3 verses 3 through 4 teaches that beauty comes from a meek and quiet spirit. Romans 12 and 2 teaches to be transformed by the renewing of your mind and not by the renewing of your body. Galatians 5 and 16 says it like this: walk in the Spirit, and you won't fulfill the lust of the flesh. The church must teach identity, modesty, and deliverance while addressing the cultural lies that say a woman's worth is in her curves, in the size of her backside. The reflective conclusion is restoring honor. What was once honored as a sign of life and beauty has been twisted into a tool of shame, profit, and addiction. But Christ came to redeem the body, soul, and image. We must teach our daughters that they are more than their bodies. Beauty is not in the bounce of the body, but the boldness of the spirit. God sees beyond shape. He sees purpose.